today I'm not starting with this history about PMF. I'm starting about what PMF actually does to your body. And you know how people are programmed. Always the same question. I have this or this condition. Does PMF help for this? I have arthritis. Is PMF good for this? I have cancer. Can I use PMF? I have this and that. I have pain. I have this and that. You know? And of course, when people ask these questions, they expect a yes, right? Which is, by the way, illegal, because we learned in the modern world and in the controlled compliance world that whenever you have a modality or a device and you have to design this device or this modality for a purpose, for a defined purpose, you know. So as a, I don't know, there is a medical device which is targeted to, for example, to keep your heart running, pacemaker. So there is a pacemaker has a very, very clear intent of use. And nobody would ever ask, does this pacemaker also help me with my pain? Because we know that a pacemaker is defined to take over the function to pump the blood through our heart. Because the heart is not capable of doing it itself anymore. But when it comes to PMF, PMF seems to be the miracle and helps for everything. Right? It's a problem. It's a huge problem when it comes to compliance. Because there is no authority in the world who would ever certify a medical device for all kinds of conditions. Does it make sense to you? Right? So here we have a problem. According to the law, we have a medical device. Because a PMF device is considered to be a medical device. On the other hand, the next step is, well, if you have a medical device and you would like to legalize a medical device, the next question the authority tells you, what's the intent of use? You tell me. I'm sure we have 20 people here in the audience. They use PMF for 20 different conditions. Probably 19 of them have great results. Maybe one not yet, or maybe not to that extent what she or he expected. I just assume, okay? So now we have 19 conditions. Yes. You have 19 conditions and you have one device. So, problem. I cannot certify our PMF device to make it in a correct way to satisfy the authorities, because they always ask for an intent of use. If I put in intent of use, it helps for all the diseases in the world. You know, they send me to, I don't know where. Siberia. Yeah, yes. They send me to Siberia to shovel the snow, right? So that's a huge problem. And that happens with many, many modalities and devices out of energy medicine. Because when you deal and heal with energy, then you have a totally different approach. You're not seeking to approach the condition. You seek to approach the holistic functionality of an organism in order to help this organism to help itself. This is not in any regulation of authorities. It's not defined there. And this is a huge problem. And this is not solved until today, frankly speaking. You know, I just told to Katie and Paul today, I'm always so honest to everybody, I'm sometimes even too honest. Because sometimes I paid the price already for being too honest. But that's me, because we have nothing to hide. You know, and I'm sharing this with you because maybe some of you know, but I want to really get it to the surface of your thoughts. What's going to happen nowadays? That this is a brilliant technology, PEMF, because it does something what no medication can deliver. It does something what no other medical device like a pacemaker can deliver. Because it creates a holistic effect on the whole body. And this is so powerful that I always say, PEMF doesn't care what you suffer from in terms of a defined disease, in terms of a condition by name. You know, it just tries to increase energy inside your body wherever possible, and miraculously, the body starts dealing with it and changing its functionality towards health. And this is what PEMF does. It was from the beginning, and it is still the same today. And I need you to get that, and I want you to understand this. Despite the fact that everybody's always jumping on you, I have this disease, does it help, does it help? You know? Well, actually, this is what PEMF does. PEMF charges your cells. That sounds so stupid and so dumb and so simple that this guy is totally crazy. How can it charge your cell? Even the term charge your cell, you know, every medical university student would already call the police. This guy is completely nuts. Yeah? By the way, these students, they don't do this because they don't like me or any other person talking about this. It's because they don't have the knowledge, they don't have the background to evaluate whether this information is correct or not. This is the real reason, you know? Ask your cardiologist why there is no heart cancer in the world. Did you ever do that? Why is there no heart cancer in the world? Do we have a cardiologist here? Of course not. Or he or she is hiding. Well, why there? What would be your answer?
Because the heart chakra is one of the highest frequency, right, in our body.
Okay, that was 2 words, heart chakra and frequency. Okay, I leave it like that, I will explain to you.
Because it has the highest density of mitochondria.
It has the highest intensity of mitochondria. That was a good answer, by the way. Well, let's keep it simple. Because the heart is the only organ in our entire system which creates its own energy. Right? So it looks like that energy could have a positive effect on our bodies, because otherwise the heart would not use this concept. Right? Our heart is the most important organ because it needs to pump blood constantly through our systems in order to keep our system alive, keeps it going, and so on and so on. So what you said about the mitochondria, it's true. I would not say that it has the highest amount of mitochondria, but it gets, and now listen, the highest amount of energy out of the mitochondria. And biologically, it is fact that a human or even an animal cell or even a plant cell, any cell in the world, can never ever turn into something malignant when it works properly, when it maintains its functions properly. And in order to do that, you need a certain amount of energy. And when this amount of energy is not there anymore, then the system goes south. Because then you turn into a situation where the cell says, oh, I'm so bored, I don't know what to do, I cannot do my function anymore. I'm going to do something different. I decide what I'm going to do. I go in a different direction, you know? And this is when cancer may occur. Because the cancer, who self-employs itself, you know, gets out of the control system and does whatever it wants on its own. And then we can slip into this malignant situation, that we have a growth of cellular level without any control anymore. And an uncontrolled cell growth we know as cancer. So from an energetic perspective, a human being can only develop a disease when the energy inside our organism reaches a critical threshold. As long as this threshold is not there, we're working perfectly. You know? And if we look at a human cell is completely researched when it comes to what's going on biochemically. You know, you can read books, the biochemistry of cells, the biochemistry of cellular metabolism. This is completely researched, you know, tons and tons of studies and books. But what is not so well understood is the energetic situation on a cellular level. And it's quite simple to explain, because inside and outside and around our cells, we have these little fellows here, these little bubbles. We call them ions, I-O-N. And those ions, they float around here. And interestingly, whenever they are exposed to a magnetic impulse, they start to move. And when ions move, they create an electric potential. We know this phenomenon from our smartphone, whenever we charge our lithium-ion battery. Because we expose the lithium-ion battery with an electromagnetic field, which kicks the butts of these little fellows. They start moving, and they create an electric potential. And because they are floating in this nice traced element, lithium, the lithium takes care of that the energy stays inside that environment, the battery. So while the ion's moving, they create that electric potential, which gives the current to run your smartphone. After a while, this energy is gone because the smartphone sucks it out of the battery, and then you have to recharge it again. And this is more or less explained in layman terms what's happening with your metabolism energetically. So, did you get that until now? So whenever we are exposed to an electromagnetic field, our organism, those ions, they are pretty happy because they're going to float around, you know, and they create this friction and they create this electric potential, and that literally blows up the cellular structure. And a cell blowed up like this with a membrane potential of, let's say, theoretically 100%, which probably never happens, but theoretically 100%, it cannot do wrong. It cannot go wrong, because this 100% membrane potential cell can perfectly let all the minerals, nutrients, and oxygen into the cellular structure. So everything what we eat, what we drink, what we breathe during our day, you know, and inside these cells, thanks for that comment, are these fellows. Those are the mitochondria. And they are sitting here inside. And they take all these minerals, the nutrients, the oxygen, and they turn it into energy, which is known as ATP. It has nothing to do with the tennis association. It is adenosine triphosphate. That's the stuff, that's the energy which drives us. The more ATP we are able to produce, the more performance we can ask from our organism. The more ATP we produce, the better our immune system is. So ATP is the fuel which runs our organism. Got it? Makes sense? Good. And you can, by the way, you can support to keep your membrane potential high by exercising. Because believe it or not, if you move over the Earth magnetic field, which is, by the way, quite static, it's not pulsating. But when you move over a static field, then you change the static into an impulse. And that's why the people who move a lot, they have a better running metabolism. Because the ions become more happy. You know, and they start moving, they start exchanging, going inside, outside, and they create this membrane potential. And this can be supported by PEMF, because you expose a pulsed electromagnetic field to your entire organism by lying on one of these whole body mats. And what actually happens? All of your 70 trillion cells, they got exposed to that fields. Why all of these? Because electromagnetic fields go through entire materia. They don't care if there is a wall, if there is a jacket, if there is underwear, if there is a pants, if there is a shirt. They just go through. And we can prove this because you can measure that. So this is not woohoo. It's physics. That's why you don't have to undress when you use the whole body mat. I mean, you can, but you don't have to. It's not necessary because it goes through entire materia. So, and now every single of the 70 trillion cells, they are exposed now by this PEMF. So you increase the membrane potential. You make sure that your entire organism increases the production and output of ATP. And this is what PEMF does. And now I could stop my lecture and send you home because now you know everything. Really, I mean it, really. Now this is what PEMF does. Not more, not less. So, and now these questions. Does it help for arthritis? Well, what is arthritis? Arthritis is a degenerative chronic disease. It's mainly accompanied by pain sensations. So, does it help? Of course it helps. Because, you know, wherever you have cells in your body which are not properly working, in the meaning of where the cell membrane potential is already diminished, and you apply a pulsed electromagnetic field, it will increase the membrane potential. So it will optimize the functionality of this particular cell or cell region or even a wider area, and tries to get the cells back to 100%. Sometimes it's from 50 to 70, sometimes it's from 60 to 80. Who knows? I don't know it. But it doesn't matter, because what we do is we have a holistic effect which is completely not looking into your disease. It just looks into the possibility wherever there needs some repair, that the membrane potential becomes higher, becomes better, with the goal, with the aim to produce more ATP. You know, and that's it. And I can tell you, we know now from energy medicine that a healthy, average human cell, you can measure that, it's measurable, has a membrane potential inside the cell. By the way, a cell is always negatively loaded inside and positively loaded outside. So you always have an ion deficiency inside and the ion overload outside. That's just how it is. That's how just nature made us. And that creates that potential. But the measured membrane potential of a healthy human cell is about minus 75 millivolt. That's a value, that's measurable. The average membrane potential of an elite athlete is about minus 100 millivolt, which makes sense because they move a lot, they exercise a lot. So they already trained their body to increase the basic membrane potential because their demand of ATP is much higher, right? So the average voltage of a cancer cell is equal or minus 35 millivolt. So from an energetic perspective, when a human cell reaches a critical threshold, a diminished membrane potential, which is equal or below minus 35 millivolt, it may go south. Does it make sense? And we're not talking about the biochemical processes here. That's just the energetic processes, where still today not so many people talk about. My opinion is energy beats chemistry. And there is no chemistry without energy. Because without having a membrane potential, none of these chemical processes would ever exist. And that's why my opinion is, over the last 30 years, what I learned is that energy is more fundamental and more crucial than chemistry, because energy drives chemistry. Does it make sense? And this is why PEMF is so powerful, because it's a fundamental, holistic, regulative application which, if properly designed and if properly used, can do incredible things to your body without being certified for a specific disease. And now you understand why there is no intent of use. Right? Because the system is not designed for arthritis, for cancer. You know, the system is designed to shift energy inside your body from less to more, which then in return the body gives you more ATP as a result out of it and helps itself to deal with all the problems. So this is what PEMF delivers. And now comes the big if. If the applied properties, what a PEMF field contains of, are delivered properly. Because, and this is what a lot of people don't know, a PEMF field contains of a lot of single things which have to be aligned in a perfect way together in order to deliver efficiency. And this is now what we take a look into, because then you are also able to evaluate, and if you look at the PEMF system, if this system does what it promises or not.